So show of hands, I just confessed. Who here has used a dating service, online dating app? Okay, great. Mandy just gave me some great coaching on my photos. I'm going to revamp in the green room.
I did.
I feel like I got like expert. Trust me, it's all going to change from here. It's going to happen. Anyway, let's talk about the business. I feel that I've written about you and your company and this industry, and one of the shocking things to me was just how big this industry is. People talk about tech, everybody's focused on FANG and everything, but this online dating is an industry that is both very big and fast growing. You guys just had your best first half in the company's history. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I've had so many conversations here over the last 24 hours, and I think that people don't realize how online dating industry has transformed. Today, 35% of marriages in the US are from a dating app, and that's about the same. And I know, it's incredible. And it's the #1 way people meet today. And we, in the business, we have our market cap's over $15 billion. We grew about 50% over the last couple of years, and we've seen a real huge momentum in the industry, not just in the US, but really globally.
And can you talk, I mentioned it in the introductory remarks, but how have you sort of looked at your product differently in the wake of the Me Too movement? I mean, we hear a lot about bad behavior online, and how have you sort of revamped things or just looked at your product since that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. I mean, I've been at the business for a really long time. So I started 13 years ago and really always thought about the female user, because if you don't have a great female experience, you don't have an experience, period, because you need great people and women to feel comfortable. I'd say there's a couple things. We've really increased our community. Our community reps, our customer care, and so we have a one strike you're out policy. So any negative behavior, anything bad happens on the app, you're done, no questions asked. And then, one of the other things I'm very proud of is that because we really are so big, we have tens and tens of millions of users in the US alone, we're really a reflection of society. And so what can we as an industry, me as a woman CEO, what can we do to protect more women? And so we just kicked off a safety advisory council where we have some of the top nonprofit executives that are going to come and help and advise us to make sure that we're doing everything we can. But I think it's really paramount. It's the thing that I worry about. It keeps me up at night is, are our users safe?
And this wasn't always the case, but we now have 2 female CEOs in this industry. We have Mandy and Whitney Wolfe Herd, who we'll be hearing from a little bit later.
About time, right?
Yeah, there wasn't. It was all male-run before that. But speaking of that, I want to also get the subject of this conversation in the program is dating drama, because it's been a very, very dramatic year for Match Group and for Mandy this year, even though she's very drama-free.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I'll just sort of go chronologically, earlier this year, in March, you sued Bumble for patent infringement. This is Whitney Wolfe Herd's company, for patent infringement. And then Bumble sued you back, saying that you were only suing them to intimidate them into selling to you, and that you guys had been in conversations. Where do things stand now? And this is a sort of new first for us to have 2 people on stage who are suing each other. So tell us where things stand now with that.
Sure. So just taking a step back, I mean, what people here heard of Tinder, I think most people in the room have heard of Tinder, but what I don't know if people understand is that when Tinder started 5.5 years ago, it changed the entire industry, because this technology innovation, which we now sort of know, this iconic swipe, it all of a sudden brought an entire new generation to dating apps. Before, you sort of hit dating apps at 30 where you're like, you know what, it's time I settle down. But with the invention of Tinder and the innovation on the app, literally within a few years, you had tens of millions of people, 18 to 25, that were now using the category that hadn't before. And we found out late last year, this is prior to me becoming CEO, that the US Patent Office gave us a patent, the patent rights to the swipe and communication, unlocking that communication. So we were thrilled, because it was the first time we really had the IP that we could go out and protect, since there were a lot of copycats in the industry, and there was a lot of businesses that we looked at, not just Bumble, but other businesses. And so once we got that patent, we then looked at other businesses that actually were using similar look and feel and technology. And I will say, it's important. I thought at the time when we made that decision, I thought all of your companies, thousands of companies, protect their IP. So I didn't realize that I was entering into, as you said, drama, but I thought it was the right thing to do to protect the real IP equity we had.
But you were having it did come out that you were having conversations with them, and are those still ongoing?
Well, I mean, we've been, since my 13 years there, we've been highly acquisitive. So we own 10 businesses throughout the globe, and not just in Europe and North America, but we've got this great business in Japan. We've got huge growth in Asia, and so we're constantly talking to people. I think that when businesses make sense and when there's great value, and we think there's an opportunity for people to work together, we are hopefully always in those conversations. And I've told you this, I've really admired Whitney and what she's built, and have had really a great personal relationship with her. And so
even through all this.
Even through all this.
That's again, I said this yesterday. I think that's how a difference between women leaders.
Well, I was thinking as Maria Sharapova was up on the stage, I was thinking that she was so fiercely competitive on the court, but she really had great relationships and respect for her competitors, and I feel the same way. And I do think that we're in an industry, at a time where we can compete but still lift each other up.
That's great. Another big sort of bombshell happened in August when the co-founders and some current executives of Tinder sued Match Group and your 85% owner IAC for $2 billion, saying that the company had purposefully held down Tinder's valuation to avoid having to make bigger payouts to the founding team. So can you comment on those allegations and tell us where that stands?
Sure. I never spent so much time with lawyers as I did this year. Tinder was an incubator at the business, and the employee base received equity, and the business did great. And the value of equity they got was about $1 billion worth of equity across the employee base, which was a lot of money. The ex-employees are saying that it wasn't enough, and so it's a contract dispute, and it's gotten, as I've told you, a lot of people want to keep us in the headlines, and this is an example of it. And so it is a contract dispute. We feel comfortable with, we really feel good about the suit, and we feel like it's very defensible, our position, but it's going to be, we're going to see how this works out in court.
I'm going to go to questions in a minute, but one other thing about the lawsuit I just wanted to bring up is that there were some allegations about the former CEO, Greg Blatt, that he had acted inappropriately with one of the people bringing the suit. What can you say about that?
Well, for me, this was as a female CEO, it was, when this news hit, it was really important for me that I got out there in front of our employee base. And I wasn't there at the time, and so I had to spend a little bit of time understanding the facts and what happened, because this is middle of last year that this happened. And I did, based on the facts, I understood that the board that has 2 women on it went through a thorough investigation with 2 outside law firms, and they found that there was not harassment. That said, there's a lot of news that was out there and a lot of headlines, and I have 1,500 people across the organization, and so right after that, I spent the next 2 weeks meeting with groups of women across the organization and talking to them about what happened, my view, how I felt we needed to move forward as an organization. And the irony is that people know me, and I ran the Match brand for a long time before I ran the portfolio of brands, and they said, Mandy, we know you and we trust you. We appreciate that you are outspoken, but I told everyone there that I hold myself to a high standard. I hold them to a high standard, and I think people were like, we know, and let's move on.
Mm-hmm. Who has a question for Mandy? Anyone? I've got a bunch more. Okay, in the back over there.
It's clearly so valuable for dating. Do you have a similar technology for hiring?
And Nina, can you just introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry, Nina Macklemore.
Yeah, thank you.
So are you using it to match people to companies?
It's a good question. We don't. That said, I've spent a lot of time thinking about hiring, because one of the big initiatives I kicked off was, and you're talking about skills and how do you get the right fit and how do you make sure people are successful, but one of the things I think is very important in our category is how do we make sure that there are more leaders at the top. 35% of our VPs and above are women, but it's not enough. More than a lot of technology companies, but I don't think we can't stop until we're 50% or more, especially given the nature of our products. And so I would say we have really looked at the hiring process and around process, not necessarily technology, to make sure that we are able to bring in more women, have better benefits, and then also really important, pay women equitably.
Great. Over here, yeah. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Carol Sawdye, PwC. Curious about the stat you put out at 35% of single people are meeting their spouses that way. Do you have any stats yet as to how successful those marriages have been, and is it better?
Well, I can tell you,
It would be
because the divorce rate is 50%, we know we have a 50% hit rate, most likely. And that hasn't changed. Actually, the divorce rate hasn't changed in the last couple of decades, and I think it's hard. I mean, one of the things that what our technology does is it predicts. It's funny, people ask, can you predict a great date? It's very hard to predict technology to predict a great date. In fact,
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
No kidding. No, I've had some good dates.
Because ultimately, it's really the chemistry that you have across from each other, and I do think technology can help. Voice, video, there are things that actually can create better dates. And so, for us, it's really around how do we create algorithms to have a high likelihood of people matching and striking up a conversation, and then hopefully that leads to better dates too.
Hi, Deanna Smith from Sarah Cannon. What's the latest information on how the Facebook breach has affected your app?
So recent news, I don't know if people saw that in the last couple.
People know about the Facebook hack from last week? Yeah, okay.
A couple things. Up until last year, Tinder, which is our biggest usage app, had 100% of the people who actually signed up for Tinder came through Facebook, or what used to be called Facebook Connect. Starting late last year, we actually gave people another option to sign up using their phone. And what was staggering is that 75% of people that signed up for our apps didn't want to use Facebook, which we knew people wanted a different way of signing up, but we didn't know how far people would take that, because they really do want to separate their dating lives from their Facebook lives. And so we have a much less tight connection to Facebook than we did, thankfully. But they have gone out yesterday and say that they don't believe that this breach, that the hackers got access to any third-party partners, which is great. But then we're also working with them on a tool to double check. But we haven't seen any anomalies, and it's something that we have to be incredibly wary of, because it's dating, it's personal, and we've got to make sure that people feel comfortable having these relationships and conversations on our apps.
Speaking of Facebook, another big piece of news that happened in this industry this year was Facebook in May announced that it was, going to get into the online dating market, which is sort of the last thing you want to hear as a CEO in a business like this. So where do things stand with that, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's so funny because it was my, I think, second or third earnings call. I mean, I just took over as a new public company CEO, and I just finished my remarks, and the phone started ringing like crazy, and I looked down, and the stock starts dropping $1 a minute. I was like, what the heck is going on here? I didn't do anything. I'm sitting in my office. And so I just printed out the script, and I threw it across my office, and I said, okay, we just got to start from the beginning, because that's all anyone's going to care about, and you should never underestimate Facebook and this, the amount of resources that they can put against any problem they want. That said, I think there's two things going for us. One, the stat I told you that people just wanted to separate dating from Facebook, and the other thing is that our fastest growing product is Tinder, which is 18 to 25, and I can tell you 18 to 25-year-olds just don't want to date on the same platforms where their parents are, and they just don't. And we've seen that people who are in their 20s or dating use on average 3 apps, and we just felt that we're not going to be displaced by Facebook. So we feel good about it, but you can never be you can't rest on your laurels when it comes to Facebook.
That's for sure. Well, we're out of time. I would love to ask you more, but Mandy, I'm going to keep you updated. I'm optimistic about what's going to happen with me. The site I use.
Her profile looks great now.
Yes, photos are approved. It's all great. Please join me in thanking Mandy for being here. Thank you.